First impressions. Commander Dominic Reed had seen countless recruits walk through the gates of the Naval Special Warfare Training Center, and he prided himself on knowing within minutes who would make it and who would ring the bell in defeat. As he stood before the newest class, his dark eyes scanning faces weathered by preliminary training, he stopped on someone who made his jaw tighten. Sienna Cross stood in formation, her auburn hair pulled back in a regulation bun, hazel eyes fixed forward. She was lean and athletic, but Dominic had seen plenty of fit people crumble under SEAL training. What bothered him wasn't her presence, it was the quiet confidence in her posture, as if she belonged here. "I'm Commander Reed," his voice boomed across the compound. "For the next 6 months, I own you. Your comfort, your sleep, your dignity, all gone. 80% of you will fail." His gaze found Sienna again. "Some of you are here to make a point. Let me be clear, this isn't a social experiment. This is life and death." Jackson Torres, a muscular recruit standing beside Sienna, shot her a concerned glance. She didn't react. Dominic approached her directly, stopping inches away. "Cross. You think you're ready for this?" "Yes, sir," Sienna replied, her voice clear and unwavering. "We'll see." He circled her slowly. "Combat simulation. Right now. You've got 15 minutes to complete a course that takes seasoned operators 30. Fail, and you're already behind." The other recruits exchanged worried looks. Sienna simply nodded. "Yes, sir. Ready when you are." The impossible test. The combat simulation facility was a labyrinth of concrete corridors, stairwells, and rooms designed to mimic urban warfare environments. Dominic stood in the observation room, arms crossed, watching through monitors as Sienna checked her training weapon and adjusted her tactical vest. 15 minutes is cruel, Dom, said Lieutenant Chen, another instructor. "That's barely enough time to navigate the structure, let alone complete objectives." "She wants to be here, she proves it," Dominic replied coldly, though something nagged at him as he watched Sienna's focused preparation. The buzzer sounded. Sienna moved. What happened next made every instructor in the room lean forward. She cleared the first corridor with textbook precision, quick angles, controlled movements, double-tapping targets with accuracy that seemed impossible for someone who'd just arrived. She breached the stairwell, neutralized threats on multiple levels, and adapted to surprise obstacles Dominic had personally designed to disorient candidates. "Jesus," Chen whispered. "She's reading the environment like she's been here before." "She hasn't," Dominic said tightly, checking the manifest again. This was her first time in their facility. Sienna reached the hostage room, a scenario requiring tactical patience most recruits lacked. Instead of rushing, she used a flashbang, waited for the precise moment, then extracted the dummy with protective efficiency. She sprinted toward the exit. 11 minutes, 43 seconds. The room fell silent as the final buzzer sounded. Dominic's knuckles were white against the console. "Unbelievable," Chen grinned, clapping Dominic on the shoulder. "You got yourself a natural, Commander." Dominic said nothing, watching Sienna emerge from the course, barely winded, calmly unloading her weapon. His carefully constructed assessment had just been shattered. Later, Dominic found Sienna in the equipment room, stowing her gear. The space was cramped, lined with lockers and tactical equipment. He closed the door behind him. "Where'd you train?" he demanded, his voice low. Sienna turned, unsurprised by his presence. In the fluorescent lighting, he noticed details he'd missed before, a small scar above her eyebrow, the defined muscles in her shoulders, the absolute calm in her hazel eyes. "Fort Benning, sir. Marine Corps family. Father was Force Recon." "That doesn't explain what I just watched." He stepped closer, using his height and presence, a technique that usually worked. "Someone gave you intel on that course." Sienna held her ground, the space between them shrinking to mere inches. She could smell his cologne mixed with coffee. "No one gave me anything, Commander." I've been training for this my entire life. Hand-to-hand combat since I was 8. Tactical shooting since 12. I earned my place here. Everyone thinks they've earned it until Hell Week breaks them. Then I guess you'll see. Her voice was steady, but something flickered in her eyes, determination mixed with something else. Challenge. The tension in the small room was palpable. Dominic realized his attempt at intimidation had backfired entirely. She wasn't afraid of him. Worse, he was starting to respect her, and that was dangerous. Don't expect special treatment, he finally said, stepping back. I never do, sir. As he left, Dominic knew his carefully maintained distance was already compromised. Sienna Cross wasn't just another recruit. She was going to be a problem, just not the kind he'd anticipated. Forced partnership. The advanced maritime training began at dawn, with gray waves churning under an overcast sky. Sienna stood on the dive boat alongside Jackson Torres and 8 other candidates, checking her equipment with methodical precision. The exercise required buddy pairs to navigate underwater obstacle courses at 30 meters, a test of skill, trust, and nerve. Cross, you're with Torres, Dominic announced from the deck, his voice carrying over the wind. Reed and Martinez will supervise from support positions. Sienna nodded, exchanging a fist bump with Jackson. They'd become genuine friends over the past 3 weeks, his easy humor balancing her intense focus. The water was shockingly cold despite their wetsuits. Sienna descended smoothly, equalizing pressure as the world above faded into murky blue-green silence. Below, a maze of submerged structures awaited, tight passages, simulated ship wreckage, and navigational challenges designed to induce panic. 20 minutes in, Jackson's regulator malfunctioned. Sienna saw his eyes widen behind his mask, bubbles erupting erratically. She signaled immediately for ascent, but he shook his head frantically, pointing to the surface support team descending. Before they could reach him, his backup regulator also failed, a catastrophic double malfunction. Dominic, monitoring from 12 meters above, saw the emergency unfold. He shot downward, powerful kicks propelling him through the water, but Sienna was already moving. She reached Jackson, forced him to focus on her eyes, and began buddy breathing procedures with absolute calm. Then Dominic's own equipment betrayed him. His primary regulator's seal broke, flooding his mouth with seawater. He choked, instinct warring with training. Through blurred vision, he saw Sienna look up, assess the situation in a heartbeat, and make a decision. She couldn't help both men alone, but she didn't hesitate. Guiding Jackson toward the ascending support divers with clear signals, she kicked powerfully toward Dominic. Her eyes met his through their masks, steady, commanding, fearless. She offered her regulator, and he took it, sharing air as she'd done with Jackson moments before. They breathed in rhythm, 2 breaths for her, 2 for him, as she guided them both upward at the safe ascent rate. Her hand gripped his vest, keeping them together. Dominic found himself focused not on the crisis but on her eyes, the competence in every movement, the strength in her grip. Breaking the surface felt like being reborn. They gasped air together, floating in the rolling waves as the boat approached. Medical teams pulled them aboard, wrapping them in thermal blankets. Jackson was already recovered, grinning weakly. Hell of a first date, Cross, he joked, making her laugh despite the adrenaline still coursing through her. Dominic sat apart, watching Sienna deflect praise from other instructors, checking on Jackson first before seeing to herself. Lieutenant Chen approached him quietly. She saved both of you. That kind of crisis management under pressure, I've seen decorated veterans freeze in less. Dominic knew. He'd spent 15 years in the Navy, survived combat deployments, led dangerous missions. And today, Sienna Cross had saved his life. That night, Dominic couldn't sleep. The barracks were quiet except for distant ocean sounds. At 0200 hours, he gave up, dressed in running gear, and headed to the beach. The sand was cool under his feet, the moon painting silver paths across dark water. He wasn't alone. Sienna was running wind sprints, her silhouette moving with fluid power in the moonlight. She wore shorts and a tank top, her skin glistening with sweat despite the cool night air. She noticed him but didn't stop, completing her set before jogging over. "Couldn't sleep either?" she asked, breathing hard but controlled. No. He should leave. This violated every professional boundary. Instead, he heard himself say, "Mind if I join you?" They ran together without speaking, finding a matched pace along the shoreline. The physical exertion cleared his mind, or maybe complicated it further, he couldn't tell. After 3 miles, they stopped where the beach curved into rocky outcroppings, both breathing heavily. "Thank you," Dominic said finally, looking out at the dark ocean. "For today. Just doing my job." It was more than that. He turned to face her. In the moonlight, her skin glowed, hair loose now and wild from the wind. "I owe you an apology. From day one, I assumed you couldn't handle this. I was wrong." Sienna stepped closer, her hazel eyes searching his face. "Why? Why did you assume that?" The question deserved honesty. "Afghanistan, 2019. I commanded a joint task force. 2 women on my team, both exceptional operators. We walked into an ambush. I got them killed because I hesitated, second-guessed deployment decisions I wouldn't have questioned with male soldiers." His voice cracked. "I told myself I was being protective. Really, I was being prejudiced. They died because of my failure, and I've been carrying that fear ever since." Sienna's expression softened. She reached out, her hand finding his arm. "That wasn't about them being women. That was war. Combat is chaos. You can't control everything. I know that intellectually. But fear isn't logical." "No," she agreed quietly. "It's not. I lost my best friend, Riley, during a training accident 2 years ago. Parachute failure. I watched her fall. For months, I couldn't jump without seeing her face. But she wouldn't want me to quit because of her. She'd want me to honor her by being the best operator I can be." They stood close now, the space between them charged with shared grief and understanding. Dominic realized his hand had moved to her waist, steadying or being steadied, he wasn't sure which. "You're not just capable, Sienna. You're exceptional. You're going to be a hell of a SEAL." She looked up at him, vulnerability mixing with the strength he'd come to recognize. "And you're a better commander than you give yourself credit for." The kiss happened like the tide, inevitable, natural, overwhelming. Her lips were salt-sweet, her body fitting against his with startling rightness. Dominic's hand tangled in her damp hair while hers gripped his shoulders, both of them pouring weeks of tension into this moment. When they broke apart, reality crashed back. Regulations. Careers. Everything this could destroy. "This can't happen," he whispered, though he didn't let go. "I know," she replied, but didn't step away. They stood there, foreheads touching, listening to the ocean, both knowing everything had just changed and neither willing to regret it. Breaking barriers. Hell Week descended on the candidates like a biblical plague. 72 hours of continuous operations designed to break the human spirit, frigid ocean swims, log drills with telephone poles, endless running with boats overhead, all on virtually no sleep. By hour 20, 3 candidates had rung the bell. By hour 40, 7 more had quit. Sienna refused to break. Dominic watched from the instructor station as she led her boat crew through the surf zone at 0300 hours, waves pounding them mercilessly. Her voice cut through the chaos, coordinating the 6-person team with hoarse but unwavering authority. Jackson stumbled beside her, nearly losing his grip on the inflatable boat. "Lock it in, Torres," she shouted. "We're not losing this boat. Together on 3, 1, 2, 3. They hauled the craft through crushing waves, every muscle screaming. Dominic saw her legs trembling with exhaustion, but she never faltered. When a smaller recruit named Davidson collapsed, Sienna physically pulled him up, half carrying him while still managing her section of the boat. "She's incredible," Lieutenant Chen said beside Dominic, both men huddled in warm jackets while their candidate suffered by design. "Natural leader. The team would follow her anywhere." Dominic nodded, his chest tight with conflicting emotions, professional pride in something far more dangerous. Since their beach encounter 2 weeks ago, they'd maintained strict distance. No private conversations. No lingering glances. But the awareness hummed between them constantly, an electric current neither could switch off. Hour 56 brought the hypothermia incident. The candidates were ordered into the ocean for extended surf torture, lying in the breaking waves as instructors hosed them with cold water. It was brutal but controlled, with medical staff monitoring core temperatures. When candidates showed danger signs, they were pulled for warming. Sienna's lips turned blue. Her shivering became violent, uncontrollable. Medical approached her 3 times. 3 times she refused withdrawal, her jaw set with determination that bordered on dangerous. "Cross, you're done," Dominic ordered, overriding medical. "Warming tent. Now." For a moment, he thought she'd refuse even him. Then she nodded, stumbling as Jackson and another recruit helped her toward the tent. Dominic followed, unable to stop himself despite every regulation screaming at him to delegate. Inside the warming tent, he dismissed the medical assistant, justifying it as commander's discretion. Alone with Sienna, he grabbed thermal blankets and wrapped them around her shaking shoulders. Her skin was ice cold, her breathing shallow. "You stubborn idiot," she chattered. "I was fine. You were hypothermic. There's a difference between tough and stupid." His hands rubbed her arms through the blanket, trying to generate warmth. "You have nothing left to prove." "Yes, I do." Her hazel eyes, bloodshot and exhausted, met his. "Every single day. To them. To you. To myself." Dominic knelt before her, his hands moving to cup her face. "Not to me. Not anymore. Sienna, you've proven everything. You're the strongest candidate I've ever trained, and I've been doing this for 8 years." Her hand emerged from the blanket, trembling fingers brushing his jaw. The touch sent electricity through him despite her cold skin. "Then why does it feel like I'm still fighting for your respect?" "You're not fighting for my respect. You have it completely." He leaned closer, his forehead almost touching hers. "You're fighting against my fear of losing you." The admission hung between them, more intimate than any touch. Sienna's shivering began to subside as warmth slowly returned. The tent felt impossibly small, filled with everything they couldn't say, couldn't do. "Dominic," she whispered, his first name foreign and perfect on her lips. "This is impossible. I know. If anyone finds out. I know. It could destroy both our careers. I know." His thumb traced her cheekbone, wiping away salt water or tears, he couldn't tell which. "But I can't stop thinking about you. Every morning when you show up for formation, every night when I'm supposed to be evaluating performance reports. You've gotten under my skin, Sienna Cross." She pulled him closer with surprising strength, the blanket falling away as her arms wrapped around his neck. "Then stop pretending you don't feel this." The kiss was different from their first, not urgent but deep, desperate with longing and impossibility. His hands tangled in her damp hair while hers gripped his shirt, pulling him closer despite the cold. He tasted salt and exhaustion and something sweet underneath. Her body gradually warmed against his, her shivering replaced by a different kind of trembling. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, Sienna pressed her face into his shoulder. "I won't quit," she whispered fiercely. "I won't give anyone reason to say this was weakness or distraction. I'll finish Hell Week. I'll graduate top of the class." Dominic held her tighter, breathing in the scent of ocean and sweat and something uniquely her. "I know you will. And I'll be there, watching you become everything you're meant to be. Even if we can't. Even then. He pulled back, forcing himself to meet her eyes. After graduation, after you're no longer my candidate, we'll figure this out. But until then, you need to survive Hell Week. Which means getting your core temperature up and rejoining your team. Sienna nodded, reluctantly releasing him. As Dominic called medical back in and stepped outside into the cold night air, he heard her voice carry from the tent, already strong again, already ready to return to the fight. He watched her rejoin her boat crew 20 minutes later, Jackson clapping her shoulder in relief. She didn't look toward the instructor station, but Dominic felt the connection anyway, a tether neither time nor regulations could sever. 16 hours remained. Sienna would make it. And then they'd both face the consequences of what they'd started in the darkness, wrapped in thermal blankets, admitting truths neither could take back. Lieutenant Chen appeared beside him. She's going to make it, you know. All the way through. Yeah, Dominic replied quietly. She is. What he didn't say was that Sienna Cross wasn't just going to make it through SEAL training. She was going to change everything, starting with him. The final proving. Graduation day arrived with cloudless skies and a sense of ceremony that felt surreal after 6 months of relentless brutality. Of the original 47 candidates, only 12 remained. Sienna Cross stood among them, pressed uniform crisp, her auburn hair pulled back in a flawless bun, posture military perfect despite the exhaustion etched into every line of her body. She'd done it. Top of her class in physical performance, tactical assessments, and leadership evaluations. Her name would be recorded in naval special warfare history. The ceremony was scheduled for 1,400 hours. High-ranking officials, visiting dignitaries, and military brass filled the outdoor pavilion overlooking the Pacific. Among them sat Admiral Patricia Vaughn, the first female admiral in Naval Special Warfare Command, who had personally requested to attend Sienna's graduation. But first came the final live-fire demonstration, a full-scale tactical exercise showcasing the new SEAL's capabilities for the assembled guests. Sienna's team would execute a simulated hostage rescue on a mock-up oil rig constructed on the base's eastern training grounds. Dominic stood in the operations center with other instructors, monitoring communications and safety protocols. He'd barely slept in days, his mind constantly cycling between pride in Sienna's accomplishments and the gnawing knowledge that after today, everything would change. She'd no longer be his candidate. The regulations separating them would lift, but so would the structure that had contained their feelings within professional boundaries. Alpha Team, you are green for insertion, Lieutenant Chen's voice crackled over comms. Sienna led her 5-person team from the helicopter, fast roping onto the platform with practiced precision. Dominic watched her movements on multiple camera feeds, confident, controlled, every inch the operator she'd fought to become. The scenario unfolded perfectly. Sienna's team cleared the lower decks, neutralized simulated threats, coordinated with sniper support. The watching officials nodded approvingly. Admiral Vaughn leaned forward with obvious interest. Then everything went wrong. Malfunction on Charge 3, a safety officer's voice cut through comms. Live explosive did not disarm. Repeat, we have a hot charge on Level 2, Section Charlie. Evacuate immediately. The monitoring center erupted into controlled chaos. A demolition charge that should have been rendered inert was still active, a catastrophic equipment failure that put everyone on the platform at risk. Protocol demanded immediate evacuation, but Sienna's team was between the charge and the extraction point. Dominic's blood ran cold as he watched Sienna process the information in real time. She had perhaps 90 seconds before the charge detonated, potentially killing her entire team and injuring spectators. Cross, evacuate now, he commanded into comms, unable to keep the edge from his voice. But Sienna was already moving, her tactical mind working faster than panic. Torres, get the team to the north extraction. Daniels, clear the spectators back 200 meters. I'm handling the charge. Negative. Dominic barked. Cross, that's an order. With respect, sir, there's no time. Her voice was steady, absolute. I've got EOD training. Trust me. The last two words hit Dominic like a physical blow. Trust me. He did. Completely. Terrifyingly. Give her the window, Admiral Vaughn's voice cut through the frequency, her authority absolute. Cross, you have 60 seconds. Make them count. Sienna sprinted across the platform, her movements captured on camera feeds that now felt like a nightmare unfolding in slow motion. She reached the charge, dropped to her knees, and began the disarmament procedure with hands that didn't shake despite the ticking countdown. The operations center fell silent. Dominic couldn't breathe, couldn't think beyond the image of Sienna crouched over an explosive that could end her life. Every second stretched into eternity. Jackson and the other team members watched from their evacuation point, faces tense with fear for their leader. 40 seconds. 30. 20. Come on, Sienna, Dominic whispered, unaware he'd spoken aloud or used her first name in front of everyone. 15 seconds. Her hands moved with surgical precision, bypassing the primary trigger, isolating the detonation circuit. 10 seconds. She clipped a wire, repositioned a component, her face a mask of absolute concentration. 5 seconds. Clear. Her voice rang out. The charge went dead. Sienna stood, holding the disarmed explosive, and calmly walked toward the extraction point. The operations center exploded with relieved cheers, but Dominic could only stare at the screen, his heart hammering so hard he thought it might break his ribs. She'd done it. In seconds, she'd assessed an impossible situation, taken command, and saved lives through skill and courage that defied description. The graduation ceremony took on new weight after the incident. When Admiral Vaughn called Sienna forward to receive her SEAL trident, the Golden Eagle clutching an anchor, trident, and flintlock pistol that symbolized sea, air, and land mastery, the applause was thunderous. Dominic stood at attention with the other instructors as tradition demanded he pin the trident onto Sienna's uniform. Their eyes met as he approached, and the world contracted to just the two of them despite hundreds of witnesses. Congratulations, Petty Officer Cross, he said formally, his voice carrying across the pavilion. Thank you, Commander Reed, she replied, equally formal. But as he pressed the trident's pins through her uniform, his fingers brushing against her chest, their hands touched briefly. Her fingers squeezed his for just a moment, invisible to observers, everything to them. Her hazel eyes held his, communicating what words couldn't in this public moment: we made it. Together. The ceremony concluded with speeches from Admiral Vaughn, who spoke eloquently about breaking barriers and honoring those who prove excellence knows no gender. Sienna stood with her fellow graduates, her face composed, but Dominic saw the emotion she fought to contain. After the formal proceedings, as families and friends celebrated with the new SEALs, Dominic found himself walking alone toward the beach where this had all truly begun. The sun was setting, painting the Pacific in shades of orange, pink, and deepening purple. The same beach where they'd run together, where honesty had first cracked through his defenses. He heard footsteps on sand and turned. Sienna approached, still in her dress uniform, the trident gleaming on her chest. She'd left the celebration, sought him out, crossed the distance between who they'd been and who they could now be. I thought I'd find you here, she said, stopping a few feet away. Needed some air. That was. He struggled for words. When I saw you on that platform, I know. She stepped closer. I heard your voice on comms. You said my name. I shouldn't have. It was unprofessional. It was human. Now she stood directly before him, close enough that he could see the gold flecks in her hazel eyes, the spray of freckles across her nose that months of sun exposure had darkened. Dominic, what happens now? He reached out slowly, giving her time to step back if she wanted. She didn't. His hand cupped her face, thumb tracing her cheekbone. Now you're not my candidate anymore. You're a SEAL. My equal in every way that matters. And this? She gestured between them, the invisible current that had pulled them together despite every obstacle. This is complicated. The Navy will have opinions. People will talk. Your career will be fine, she interrupted firmly. I didn't earn this trident through favoritism or shortcuts. My record speaks for itself. Anyone who suggests otherwise can take it up with Admiral Vaughn. She smiled slightly. Or with me directly. Dominic laughed, the sound surprising him. God, you're something else. Is that good or bad? It's terrifying. You're the finest operator I've ever trained, Sienna Cross. You've changed everything I thought I knew about strength, about courage, about. He paused, the words suddenly enormous. About what it means to meet someone who challenges you to be better than you ever imagined. Sienna's hand rose to cover his where it still rested against her face. You pushed me harder than anyone ever has. Made me prove myself beyond any doubt. I hated you for it sometimes. And now? Now I understand you were preparing me for a world that would question me at every turn. You made me unshakable. Her voice softened. And somewhere along the way, you became the person I trust most in this world. The kiss was gentle this time, unhurried, no longer stolen in secret moments but offered freely under the open sky. Dominic wrapped his arms around her, feeling her body fit against his with the rightness of coming home. She tasted like champagne from the reception and something sweeter, victory, hard-earned and undeniable. When they pulled apart, still holding each other, the sun had nearly set. Stars began appearing overhead, the same stars that had guided countless sailors and warriors before them. So what now? Sienna asked again, her head resting against his chest. Now you get your first assignment. You'll deploy, probably somewhere that makes Hell Week look like a vacation. He tightened his hold on her. And I'll be here, training the next class, worrying about you every second you're in the field. I can handle myself. I know. That's what scares me most. He kissed the top of her head. But I also know you'll come back. You're too stubborn not to. She laughed, the sound carrying across the empty beach. And when I do? When you do, I'll be right here. Waiting. Because whatever complications this brings, whatever challenges we face, you're worth it. This is worth it. Sienna pulled back to look at him, her expression serious. Promise me something. Promise this doesn't change how you train candidates. Don't go easier on women because of us. Don't second-guess yourself because you care about me. Sienna. Promise me, Dominic. The best way to honor what I accomplished is to demand excellence from everyone who comes after me, regardless of gender. Hold them to the same impossible standards you held me to. He saw the fierce conviction in her eyes, the same fire that had carried her through every impossible test. I promise. Every candidate gets the full Commander Reed experience, terrifying, demanding, and absolutely no mercy. Good. She grinned. Though maybe slightly less prejudiced assumptions on day one. Yeah, he admitted with a rueful smile. Maybe slightly less of that. They stood together as darkness fell completely, the ocean a vast whisper beside them. Two people who'd started as adversaries, transformed through fire and water and exhaustion into something neither had expected, partners, equals, and against all odds, in love. I have 6 weeks before my first deployment, Sienna said finally. Then we make the most of them. And after? Dominic took her hand, their fingers interlacing naturally. After, we figure it out. Long distance, complicated schedules, Navy regulations, and all. We've both survived worse than difficult logistics. Sienna laughed again, squeezing his hand. True. Hell Week has nothing on military bureaucracy. They began walking along the shoreline, leaving footprints that the tide would soon erase. Behind them, the Naval Special Warfare Training Center glowed with lights, filled with celebrations and the ghosts of every warrior who'd earned their trident through blood, sweat, and unbreakable will. Ahead lay uncertainty, deployments, dangers, the thousand complications of building something real in a world designed for sacrifice and service. But they'd both proven themselves capable of the impossible. And as they walked together under emerging stars, Dominic Reed and Sienna Cross knew this truth: the strongest bonds are forged in fire, tested under pressure, and earned through mutual respect. What they'd built wasn't despite the trials they'd faced, but because of them. She'd proven she was anything but weak. He'd learned his assumptions were his own limitations. Together, they'd become something neither could have been alone. The ocean rolled beside them, eternal and unchanging, bearing witness to another chapter in the long story of those who choose to serve, to sacrifice, and occasionally, against all odds, to find love in the crucible of becoming their best selves.